Alrighty, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. As we're entering our session today, we have some reminders on helping to make the event successful. So feel free to take a moment to read that. We're still waiting on one more panelist to join us. And so at some point today, she'll join us. We're so excited to have so many people be interested in our organization and wanting to reach out and make a connection. So we'll give people another 30 seconds to settle in. Cool. I think I'm going to get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Binh Au. I'm the Crisis Line Program Director. I've been with the agency for about 18 years. Started as a work study student when I was a college kid, and also volunteered on the Crisis Hotline while in college, and have stayed with the agency for all those years. Now I oversee the Crisis Line Program. I wanted to give like just a quick brief history about the founding of CSS. You know, we were founded in 1967 in a barber shop, actually. Our founders, Ron Tauber and his friend who owned the barber shop, you know, saw that there was this need for community support. And this was during the 60s in Berkeley, right? And so there was a lot of this desire to create the services to fill the gaps that are within our system. And the agency was founded on this principle that trained laypersons can provide high quality mental health services. And so since 1967, we've been largely, a lot of our services are provided by volunteers. Each year in the Crisis Line program, we have about 180 volunteers provide services, answering about 60,000 calls a year. And the volunteers go through about 90 hours of training. That includes classroom training and one-on-one shift training with a trainer. Our intentions of putting together today's panel with volunteers is that like there is sometimes a mystery about what it means to call a crisis line, right? Who's going to answer the phone when I pick up? Are they going to understand me? Are they going to be nice to me? And we really believe that it takes a tremendous amount of courage and strength to reach out and ask for help. And we want to honor that courage and strength of our folks who reach out for help. And that question, right? Will the counselor understand me? Have they lived through the experiences that I have? And I want to say, many of us are motivated to be here by our own lived experience. And every year we do a survey, just trying to understand, you know, who our volunteers are. And about a third of us have lost someone to suicide. More than 60% of our people who provide the services identify as someone with lived experience. So someone who has taken medication or been to the psych hospital or has lived through suicidal experiences or a suicidal crisis. And over 90% of our team has supported a family member or a loved one through these crises. And so I want to say very clearly that many of us have been through the lived experiences that our callers have. And really we wanted to have an opportunity for us to make a connection with each other and with our community. So I appreciate you reaching out and joining us today. I wanted to also say Nargis is the co-host of this panel today. She's going to monitor the chat. And we really want this to be like a casual, like fireside kind of conversation. Usually between calls, right? We're hanging out with each other, you know, getting to know each other. And we want to have that same feel for our panel. So we invite folks to ask questions or make comments in the chat. And Nargis will support us by watching the chat conversations. So let's go around and let's introduce ourselves. Since we are in this Zoom format, I think I'll call on the volunteer in the order that I see you on the screen. So Shellen, do you want to introduce yourself, your role at CSS, how long you've been with us, and what you do outside of volunteering, or you're actually on staff, what you do
Yeah,
outside of
sure.
CSS?
Yep. So my name is Shellen. I started working for, or actually volunteering for CSS about 2 years ago. I started off training for the crisis line, and then I decided to shift to text line, to the text line program. And a year into it, I became hired actually as a shift supervisor. So my role is to basically, in addition to providing counseling through the text line, I train volunteers, I provide them support, debrief with them. Yeah, and I really love my job here. What I do outside of CSS, I really think that self-care is super important. It's something that I prioritize, and I do a lot of running, biking, marathon training. I think it's just nice to balance like an emotionally like challenging job to or with like a physically grueling sport. And yeah, it's a great way to have that balance.
Great, Shellen, thank you so much. Later on, we're going to want to hear from you about the text line service. And then I think it'd be a great conversation for all of us to talk about self-care and what we do to have balance in our life.
Okay.
Rana, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Rana. Hi. I'm a volunteer with CSS. I've been here for 2 years now. And I came to CSS for kind of a variety of reasons. As Ben spoke about lived experiences, my very first memory in this world is of a family member committing suicide. And then we've had our family and our friends have been touched by suicide multiple times since then. I've got kids that are in high risk categories. And then I'm always referring to the celebrity suicides that impacted my life. I'm still in mourning for Chris Cornell. And the day after Anthony Bourdain took his own life is the day that I called CSS because I just felt like I could no longer, just sit still and not try and do something, or try and, have an impact on what is a crisis in this country, probably in the world. Um, and outside of my CSS life, I am, as I said, a mom. I've got two kids who are not so much kids anymore, more young adults. And I work for the County of Alameda Safety Net Hospital System, Alameda Health System. So that's really in line with my kind of, life mission of helping vulnerable populations, which is another reason why I'm also at CSS. I'm a wife, married to my childhood sweetheart. I like to write in my spare time. And COVID quarantining has granted me the new skill of crocheting, which I never thought I would say, but I like crocheting now. So yay for crocheting. that's really about it for me.
Juliana?
Yes, hi. Hi, I'm Juliana. So I've been volunteering for almost 5 years now, which seems hard to believe, but I think I'm a lifer, at this point. It just feels like I don't know why I would stop because I find it so immensely gratifying. I think I started volunteering. I mean, in my outside life, my profession, I'm a musician and I teach music. I just started feeling like I wanted to do something to kind of get in the thick of things in terms of the community and see if I could just sort of what support I could offer. Also, I've had my own struggles in the past with depression, and I felt like in a way that it would help me as well to do this kind of work and volunteering, which it has. And so, yeah, so I just found CSS and it's a incredible organization, so incredibly supportive. And so, yeah, that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Scott, do you want to share?
Yeah. I'm Scott, and I've been a volunteer on the crisis lines for almost 2 years now. And yeah, what brought me there was, well, I mean, a lot of things. But yeah, I've had my own, struggles with mental health, and I feel like I've come a long way. So, to be able to give back to people, I'm also just really passionate about mental health in general. And I'm thinking about switching careers to go into mental health. So all of those things combined kind of led me to CSS. And yeah, outside of volunteering, I work at the Livermore Housing Authority, which is a low-income housing subsidy program. And I'm also a musician on the side. And so, yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you all for being vulnerable too with sharing your personal stories and personal journeys. We're waiting on one more panelist, Joanne. I'm checking in to see if Joanne's on in the room with us. I heard a bell. That was not Joanne. Well, I'm curious. So my first question for the panel is like, what is it like being on shift? Paint us a picture. Whoever wants to go first can just start.
Well, it's a little different right now because of COVID. Although I'm one who still insists on on going in, just because I don't have a good setup in my home space to do remote calls. So I guess typically, I mean, and still you just go in, you sign in. There are some logistics involved in terms of getting set up. There's a lot of, because we keep keep track of colors, and so yeah, and so generally the shifts are, I think most shifts are 4 hours. I know that's the one that mine is. And yeah, in normal times, there are a number of people at different stations with their computers and headsets in a big room, and you have your calls, but then in between times you are, kind of connecting and yucking it up often. It's a good balance to the intensity of the call sometimes. But even in COVID times, like, we're connected to each other, all the counselors on staff, by a chat program. And so there is still tons of support there. So I mean, that's one of the amazing things about this organization and volunteering here, is you're never alone at all. And so there's just this incredible support around you, this whole team that is there at the ready if you need any help doing it. So yeah, so that's a typical, you take your calls, and sometimes it's crazy busy, sometimes it's not as busy, and then you keep track of, take notes on callers and keep track of things, and then you sign out, and that's a typical shift.
Does anyone else want? Yeah.
Yeah, piggybacking on the whole idea of support, I think it's just really great to work for an agency too that focuses a lot on volunteers' mental health and their self-care and mental well-being. Like, I know that our job is to help support other people, but it's also really important to have self-compassion for ourselves, support each other, so that we can extend our compassion outwards to our texters and callers. Yeah, so that's super important here at this agency.
So one layer of support on shift is we have volunteers, and on every shift there is at least one shift supervisor. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 shift supervisors who are paid staff people, and their role is to support volunteers. Sharon, do you want to say a little bit more about what the shift supervisor does?
Yeah, so things that shift supervisors typically do is like, sometimes if a volunteer is having like difficulty with a call or a text session, we debrief with our volunteers, just talking through the counseling session, and just I guess other things would be just, answering any questions that the volunteer has, Yeah, unless there is anything else to add, Ben.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We have that person who is a support person for our volunteers.
Can I add something to that if you don't mind? Sorry to interrupt. But I'm a volunteer, but in my experience with our shift supervisors, um, it's everything from sometimes if you're in the middle of a challenging call, your brain just will, my brain anyway, will just go blank, and I'll text my shift supervisor with just the most ridiculous basic question, something that I know, but in the heat of the moment, I'm just like, I don't know what to do, and they always will get back to me really quickly with it, just take a deep breath and this is what you need to do. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know that. And then when we were working in the office, there was actually one time that is very memorable to me because I was on a really, really difficult call that reminded me of some personal connections. That was extra kind of emotional for me. And I didn't even ask the shift supervisor or anything, but she seemed to recognize that I was struggling a little bit and just came over and put her hand on my shoulder. And I'm just like, oh, it was just everything I needed right at that moment to be able to, take the next step with a caller and ground myself and refocus and focus on the caller. So I think that shift supervisors are just, they're miracle workers. I mean, they just do so much and they're so appreciated for all of us volunteers. I'm sure I speak for most volunteers anyway when I say that.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that as a shift supervisor, I really like to check in with the volunteers to see how they're doing outside of shift and on shift. Yeah, just reaching out to them, letting them know that I'm here to support them.
One of the intentions of our time together and having like the community members get to meet our volunteers is to show that like we're human, right? That we, the counselors, both shift supervisors and volunteers, we have our own feelings, we have our own history, and we're not perfect. But what we will do is we will be there for you in our fullest human selves. And what we found that is the most healing for folks who are in pain is to have a human connection, just to have like a real authentic moment together, so that while you might be feeling loneliness or pain or suffering, that while we're together on the phone, you're not alone. Rana shared a memorable moment. I'm wondering if other folks want to share a moment from your time on the crisis lines that stands out for you.
I'll share something.
Thanks.
I am having some, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm having some technical difficulty where kind of look up for a little while. I cut out. I apologize.
You're breaking up a little bit. I wonder if you turned off your camera, Scott. I think maybe you've already done that. You can try again. Oh man, I think I jinxed it by saying something. We'll have to get back to Scott on that story. Go ahead, Scott. Yeah. It's not coming through.
So, you can go to
Maybe
sorry,
he can
Scott.
chat it. What if he writes something in the chat?
Oh, that's a great suggestion.
Great idea.
Yeah, you could chat the story, Scott. And then also, Nargis made the suggestion that Joanne and Scott can call in. Any other stories from the crisis line? I remember a caller. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I remember a caller. It was like Christmas Eve, and the caller said, "Give me 12 reasons to live." And I was like,
I don't know if that's
man,
sad or happy.
That's a lot of pressure on me as the counselor. And I remember telling the caller, well, I don't know you well enough to be able to give you 12 reasons to live, but together we can explore, what's kept you going all this time. And I really want to connect and hear what's causing you so much pain that you want to die. So let's just have a conversation, and maybe together we'll come up with that list. Yeah, we're not here to tell people what to do with their lives. We're not here to give advice, right? We're a sounding board. We're a warm, squishy hug sometimes. We're here to provide support. And we truly believe that everyone has the answers within themselves. Yeah. Juliana, do you want to share your story?
Yeah, I was just going to share that, that I had an experience a couple of weeks ago where this woman was just distraught about a number of things. And she was listing all the things that were weighing on her, like the job, she had a new baby, the pandemic, of course, the everything. And but the way she was talking, it was just so over the top. And she said something and we just started laughing. Like it just switched to this whole other thing for a few minutes, which was, I think, very healing for her and for me. And it was just a very natural response to something that she said. It just, it pushed it over the edge. And so it was a cool experience to have that happen.
I have to say, I mean, that happens more often than I would have ever expected, that even a caller that presents as, kind of high acuity at the beginning, maybe they're crying or in a high level of distress, very often 15 minutes later, we're giggling about things. It's not that I've solved their problems. Like Ben said, we can't take that agency away from them. We can't, I can't solve their life's problems in 15 minutes, but if I can give them 15 minutes of peace or help them just be heard, that's worth everything to them. And it just lifts such a weight off of them. And so often we end the call with laughter and with appreciation and both of us thanking each other. And it's such a pleasant, it's not always like that, but it's such a pleasant experience when that happens.
Yeah. Laughter is a wonderful medicine. I see Joanne joined us. Do you want to, oh, you're muted. Do you want to unmute yourself and just introduce yourself, how long you've been with CSS and what motivated you to join us as a volunteer? Uh-oh, yeah, go for it. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you. No, we can't hear you. I see Rose.
Sorry.
Joanne, maybe you can type in your story in the chat. I see Scott's back. Yeah, Scott, do you want to share your story now?
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, it was just kind of a sweet moment that stuck with me on a call recently. It was someone who, she was kind of talking about, thoughts of suicide, and that she sometimes has the impulse to like research a plan online. Kind of, okay. And anyways, we talked for a while, and then towards the end of the call, I just said something like, what did I say? Just, if that impulse comes up to, actually start researching a plan or something, make sure you call us before, before that impulse, you act on that impulse, and we can talk about it. Just something like that. And it just really touched her, and she sounded like she started crying, and she just said, I know you don't know me, but it means so much that you said that. I think just knowing that someone cares about her. And yeah, it was just a kind of a touching moment. So that was my story.
Thanks, Scott.
We have someone from the chat that would love to hear a little bit more about the experience with text lines and what it's been like. The person here says they seem like a great option. I also wonder about the one step removed from the connection and human voice. So Shalyn, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So just to clarify, what my experience has been working on the text line.
Yeah, and I think what the connection is like building rapport on the text line compared to the crisis line?
It's definitely a lot harder, kind of like building rapport on a text line when you're just, yeah, like chatting through text. Like you don't see the person's face, you don't hear their voice. It's hard to hear each other's tone of voice. But what I like about texting is that, well, there's a way I find that's helped me to connect with texters, just like using emojis. And yeah, I feel like it doesn't, what am I trying to say here? I think it's a way to connect with a texter, and just, yeah, like, let me think about this. um, yeah, I also like to use a lot of like affirmations, like strength-based affirmations to support the texter as a way for us to connect. Yeah.
Add a little bit more.
Sure.
We started the text line to reach out to our youth, right?
Right.
It started about 7 years ago, and we know for a lot of our young people, privacy is something that's hard to have. You might be in the room with your siblings and your parents, and how do you have a conversation that you can keep private? Texting is one way to do that. So a young person or anyone in the community can text with their phones, and then we respond on our computers. That way, if that way they can have a conversation. And what we found that texters on the text line, people get to the heart of the matter right away, and people are able to share really, really personal things about their experiences growing up in the Bay Area, to like their mental health challenges, to depression, loneliness, bullying at school. Like Shellen said, it does take extra work, to make it that connection. And at the same time, it totally works. I do feel like when I'm on a text session, feeling connected with someone. Sometimes for like the counselor's experience, we sometimes we don't know what happened, right? So for example, like I was on the text with someone, and we were texting about some of their suicidal thoughts, and they were okay managing their suicidal thoughts. But then all of a sudden they stopped texting. And I was like, uh-oh, what happened to this person? Are you there? I want to stay connected. And I didn't hear from them for like an hour. And it turns out they went to get dinner with their family. So, so with the texting, we sometimes, we've tried to have a conversation with the person and stay connected. And if they are ready to go get dinner with their family, we ask that they let us know. But I do believe we can have some very, very meaningful conversations through our texting.
And there's also, I feel, a lot of guesswork into someone's emotions through texting. Like, again, you can't really hear their tone of voice. So I just, have to be really in tune with their feelings, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. I see Joanne shared a story about speaking with an 8-year-old on the chat. I'll just read it out loud. I spoke with a mother having problems with this system concerning her daughter. I listened, validated her experiences, and reassured that counselors at CSS would listen and support her. By the end of the call, she sounded relieved, and she was willing to live. So the mother, I think, was having suicidal thoughts. So by the end of the call, the mother had found a will to live, to be there for her child, and also remember to help herself as well. I found that call to be really, really rewarding. We had mentioned how COVID-19 has impacted our crisis line services. About 80% of our team is working remotely, answering the calls from home. So I'm curious to hear from the team, how has that impacted you as a counselor, having to work remotely?
for me, I'll go. For me, the biggest kind of challenge, or not challenge, but the biggest impact COVID-19 has had is, other than the remote working, is that for our clients, it's adding an extra layer to their already deeply layered concerns that they're having in life. They still have the same, the same stressors, the family, the mental health issues, maybe housing insecurity, whatever their kind of other issues are. And now they have the stressors of a quarantine. They have the stressors of maybe they've lost a job, maybe they have a sick family member, and they live with that sense of uncertainty that I think we all have. And you layer all of that together, and it makes everything a lot more kind of serious for our clients. So we've had to really be in tune with that, and try and be compassionate and empathetic with that added layer. And sometimes they don't even mention COVID, but you can kind of hear it in their voice. And as a counselor, I have very often said, yeah, and then we have the added stressor of quarantining. Are you having to quarantine? Are you and bringing it up that way. And whenever I've done that, they've been, I think it's been a little bit of a release for them, that maybe they didn't realize that was adding to everything else that they were feeling. So it's just added a lot.
Thanks, Rana. Joanne, your audio is working now. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, Joanne.
Volunteer? Yeah.
Yes, Joanne Walker. I've been with Crisis Support Services for 8 years. The thing that motivates me to volunteer is I'm driven by the fact that there is so much human suffering. And a lot of times you don't realize that people who wear suits and who dress nicely and live in an affluent area are sometimes even more depressed than people who are not from that area. And so it's very important for me to just remember to read the book, not just look at the covering and assume that I can surmise what the book is about. You have to read the book, and I do that by listening. So the experience that I had recently was one where a gentleman was on the corner in a wheelchair, and he was just sitting. Can everyone hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it just seemed odd because he had been there for such a long time. Long story short, I went out to speak with him, mask on, long sleeves, a jacket on, very disconnected in terms of human to human contact. But when he looked up at me and explained that he was sick and tired of not being appreciated, and then he just let it go and started crying. And he said, I'm tired of people not appreciating me. He kept saying that. And I let him get it out. And then I looked at him and got really close to him, closer than we're supposed to. And I said, but you know what? You do matter. Your life is important. Your story is important. Your voice is important. And don't let anyone take that away from you, because that is profound. Your experience is profound. And I need for you to know that I get it, that I know that you don't have contact, human to human contact, the way you would like it. I said, but I'm contacting you right now. Look at my eyes, look at my face, look at my body language. So I was able to do that with him because I was in close proximity. But when I'm working either on the line or on a telephone somewhere else or working remotely, I have to remember to let all those things that I verbally said to the person who I encountered, I have to remember to put that in my voice so other people can hear it and feel the intensity of care behind it. And what happened with this gentleman is he finally got it out, he let it go, and he was able to get up out of his wheelchair, catch the bus, and go home and make contact with crisis support in San Francisco.
Thanks for sharing that story. So in that story, Joanne, you were talking about your experiences in your other job when you're not
Yes.
at CSS, but you use some of the skills that you've learned at CSS in your other job.
Definitely.
What is your other job?
I work out on patrol for the San Francisco Police Department, and I've been doing that for about 25 years now. And the majority of the people that I come in contact with are people who are suffering from mental health challenges, because my population deals with people who are homeless, who have a dual diagnosis, and who have a host of challenges in their lives.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for your good work out in the field as a police officer.
Well, thank you very much. But I appreciate everyone who's worked or who is working at the Crisis Center, because all of you are making it happen for those people who choose to call in. You're allowing them to feel like they're a part of humanity, because we have so many people who feel disconnected, especially with the COVID-19. So I want to thank all of you for what you do, because it's needed.
I appreciate some things that you said to the person you're trying to help was like, you matter. Your experience is profound and your experiences matter.
Yes.
That is the message that as counselors, we try to convey it with every call that we take. Because there's so much in our society that tell us that we are not, that we don't matter, right?
Right.
Racism, sexism, all these systems of oppression impact our lives and tell us that we don't belong, that we don't matter. And at CSS, we really believe that people are suicidal because of these external pressures, because people aren't able to access the help that they need, because they're impacted by COVID-19, impacted by the fires, by the smoke. These environmental problems lead someone to feel more isolated, more alone, more like they don't belong, more like you don't matter.
Right.
And at Crisis Support, we are like that message. You know, we have to keep saying it. You matter. You belong. You're worthy of care. You're worthy of love.
That's right.
I have a question to ask of the group, which is there something that surprised you about volunteering, like a conception you had before entering the role and how it changed once you were in the role?
I had a lot of surprises. But probably the first surprise I got was that in order to be effective at this, we had to look in the mirror first. I had to first see my own biases and my own, you know, where I might lack empathy or compassion or that kind of thing. And then another big surprise early on, like in the early days of training, was that not all of our, bless you, not all of our callers are, you know, standing on the proverbial, you know, edge of the cliff. You know, the vast majority of them just need to be heard. You know, they just need to talk to somebody. Their life is so isolated, or even if they have people around them, they feel lonely, or they can't talk about these, you know, these deep emotional problems with the people they love because they don't want to burden them. So they call us. And I don't know what percentage, Ben could probably tell you what percentage of calls are you know, high acute versus what percentage of them are kind of regular callers who just want to talk. But the vast majority of them, they just want to talk, and we get to know them, you know, and we get to learn a little bit about their lives, and you know, we talk about their pets, we talk about their jobs, we talk about their kids, and it really can be rewarding just to be that connection for people. And that was a huge surprise for me.
Yeah, I would say like each day would take about 200 calls in a 24-hour period, and 5 to 7 calls are people what we would say medium to high risk for suicide, where they might have already thought about suicide and started to put together a plan. They might have the means or some kind of weapon to carry out the plan. For those folks, you know, we work together to help the person stay safe, and utilizing law enforcement for a wellness check is the last resort. So if you come back if you come back on Wednesday, you'll get to meet some of the other crisis providers. Alameda County has so many more options today than we've had in the past on how to help someone stay safe through a mental health crisis without having to utilize law enforcement, without having to go to John George, our local psych hospital. So we'll work together with the caller to figure out how to help them stay safe.
Can I share one quick short
please do.
story? It just, based off of, my surprise that all the calls weren't, high level, high risk. The very first call I sat in on our training, part of what we do in the training is we used to sit in a group with, with one of the staff members and listen to calls that are coming in on the lines at the moment. The very first call I had was a rescue call. And I remember looking at Sarah going, "You told me we didn't do this very often." And it was the very, very first one. So it was really funny is not the right word, but it was surprising to have a twist to the surprise that I had. And in the 2 years I've been doing it since, I have either been a part of or seen, I think, maybe 2 other rescues. So it really, most calls, just like I said, they just want to talk.
We want people to call us before they're at that point where they're ready to jump or
That's
hurt
right.
themselves. Yeah.
Yes.
There's so many steps before that point, and we want to connect with you before you get to
Ben,
yeah,
Ben,
Joy?
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
What I want to share with the group is that everyone plays a role in suicide prevention. And although when people see me on the job, they see the uniform before they even think about the person in the uniform, what I want to say to everyone is that the population or people who are having challenges come to me in a lot of different forms. It could be domestic violence. It could be an argument. It could be a car accident. I could be there on a well-being check for a senior citizen and then realize that people in that particular complex or in that family are so burdened with responsibilities that they really are in a crisis state. The thing that's so great about working with a team of counselors from crisis support is that all of you hear things that other people don't hear. You hear it differently, and it causes you to ask certain questions that help to pull out information that other people are either not interested in or they don't think is important at the time. So long story short, I walk down the street and people come to me and they just want to talk. Well, that's when I pull out my skills. I ride the bus. People sit next to me. They want to talk. I never fail to say, you can contact crisis support. This is a wonderful group. They have lots of services for you. So I am living what you just said, Ben, which is that we don't want people to wait to have law enforcement come in to do a well-being check. There are lots of steps that we can take before then. And I want everyone to know that all of us have it within us to do it. You don't have to be in law enforcement. You don't have to wait for law enforcement, but you only have a window of opportunity where you have to take action. And when you miss that window, that's when we come in, because then people are calling us because the person is acting out and they feel threatened in some way. So they call us. Okay. So that's what I wanted to add to your statement.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, I want to highlight what you said. Everyone has a role in suicide prevention.
Mm-hmm.
And for so many of callers, they tell us the story of like, they talked to their therapist and the therapist ignored their suicidal thoughts. They talked to their priest or rabbi,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they were told, it's immoral to have these thoughts or feelings. They talked to their primary care physician about their suicidal thoughts and feelings, and they might get ignored or rejected. And there's so many spaces where people have tried to get help and get the door slammed on them. And so just want to highlight what Joanne said. It's like, yeah, we all have a role. If someone comes to you and they say, I'm having suicidal thoughts and feelings, right? I think a response could be something like, I'm really glad you shared that with me, and I'm here to help. What's the best way for me to help?
Absolutely.
There's go ahead.
I was just going to say that I had a call this past week of a girl who was suicidal, and I ended up at the end of the call, it was an intense call that culminated in a rescue. The stepfather got on the phone, you know, and said kind of, who are you kind of thing? Are you one of the therapists? And I said who I was. And he said, oh, this is just what she does for attention. So, I mean, it was just kind of shocking and like, okay, this girl had tried many avenues and, you know, no one was listening to her or taking her seriously. So, and then just to piggyback on what you gals just said, I mean, I think for me coming in volunteering, it was a surprise that there weren't as many, you know, acute crises happening, but that I was able to just pull my own skills as a human being with compassion and ears and empathy, that I could just bring that, and that is enough, you know, that's enough. And so it demystified, which is not to say that there aren't some big challenges in the calls that we encounter, but a lot of it is just being a human being in dialogue in a situation with another human being. And so that's pretty gratifying and not so hard, you know, it's not so hard.
There's a question in the chat right now from Janine. Thank you for sharing the question. Do volunteers get repeat callers who want to talk to the same volunteer? Any of you can answer that.
Yeah,
Yes.
we do sometimes. Yeah, I know that when I get a call where the caller is like, "Hey, can I speak to Bob?" I spoke to Bob. I'm like, you know, I don't know where Bob is, but I'm here for you. Let's talk. And so you kind of have to start a new. It's like starting from ground zero with them sometimes if they want to speak to somebody. And we have some callers that won't speak to somebody they've never spoken with before and that kind of thing. So it can be a challenge, but you know, I like a challenge. That's why I'm volunteering at CSS instead of, you know, cleaning up parks or something, because I like the challenge and I want to help this person. And every now and then they'll hang up on you when you tell them you're not Bob and you don't know where Bob is, or they'll hang up on you, I mean. But most of the time they'll let you get in there and try and form that connection with them.
I get a lot of repeat texters who, just text in on the same shift as I do. And sometimes we build such a strong connection that they want to keep talking. And it throws them off when we've built this like rapport and connection to switch to a new counselor and talk to them. But I want to encourage their like autonomy and independence by giving them that opportunity to talk to newer counselors or other counselors.
We want to honor and acknowledge that so many of us, right, we live in a traumatic world, and so many of our callers and so many of us who are counselors have lived through different traumas in our lives. And sometimes it's really hard to trust someone. And you're calling a hotline and it's a stranger that's on the other side. It's hard to trust that person with your story. Are they going to hurt me, right? Are they going to do a microaggression in the call? Are they going to reject me if I tell them this part of my story? So we want to honor that. For some people, it's not a good match with the counselor. And we do try to give people choices. And at the same time, to highlight what Shellen was saying, we want to support people in expanding their support network. And what's really cool about calling the crisis line is that you can call on different days and make a different kind of connection with a different volunteer. And it helps folks feel more connected, you know, to society, to the world, and to practice those connection skills with different people. So we also encourage our callers to try to connect with different counselors. I'm curious to hear from the volunteers. What's something you've learned about yourself while being here?
I don't always want to go first. I mean, I will, but I don't want to jump in on other people's time.
Someone's got to.
And someone's got to. I'm more than happy to, but I don't want to take over the call either. It's not my job here. but I have learned, I was thinking about this, the last couple of days while I was, kind of preparing for this, and I've learned so many things, and I've mentioned some of them already about, learning about my own biases, learning about my own, level of compassion and all of that. And all of that's like life changing. I mean, it's amazing. But the one thing, and this is kind of funny, not funny, but the one thing that I've really learned is that, I'm a mom. I'm in my 50s. I've been around a long time. I have the answers to like everything. I always thought I did anyway. And one of the most important thing I've learned that has like changed my world is that people don't want me to solve their problems.
Right.
And I'm just like, wait a minute, wait. For the people in the back, people do not want me to solve their problems.
Right.
They want me to hear them and not tell them what to do. And that was so hard for me. I mean, I'm the mother of a teenage girl. So what this means is when she comes to me, to talk about her friends or complain about her friends or something that whatever teachers did, my first instinct is, well, you should go and do this. And she doesn't want me to do that. She wants me to hear her. And then if and only if she asks me to help her develop solutions to her own problems, I can then do that. And I remember the first time I kind of made that connection specifically with her, I started, she was telling me about something and I started with well, if I were you, I would do this and this. And then I stopped myself mid-sentence. I'm like, you don't want me to tell you what to do you? And she's like, no, I never want you to tell me what to do. I'm like, all right, lay it on me. Let's just talk then. You tell me what you need to tell me. And it has it's literally changed my world. My relationship with my kids are better. My relationship with my husband is better. My sisters, my parents, I mean, everybody. It was mind bending for me to learn that about myself.
Like that a lot. I can add what it has done for me. Initially, when I just want to be sure everyone can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yep. Loud and clear.
When I initially started, I really did want to help other people. That's how I looked at it. I'm here to help people who are really going through some things. I want to help. Along the way, I realized somewhere along the way that the help I wanted to give to other people was actually coming back to me. And the training, the experience with the counselors, talking to teachers who are in the business of helping people to help other people, learning from everybody's experiences helped me not only professionally to help other people, but it also helped me to help myself and my family and people in my community as well. That was something that I didn't really foresee. So to be on the receiving end of just a gesture of kindness, helping another human being, and how it has impacted my life in such a positive way, it is, sometimes it's without words because it's a very deep thing. It's very humbling. I feel very fortunate. And when I look at all of the counselors and see your pictures on the wall, I feel like all of you are very fortunate too, because you're exercising the opportunity to meet and greet and reach out to help another human being. And sometimes the very small thing that you do, such as saying hello and saying, I'm here to help, I want to hear what you have to say, it is something that not only helps the person who's calling, but it helps all of those people who are supporting the person who's calling. That is what I learned as I walk through this journey. And I realize now that sometimes the things that we say will stay with a person for a lifetime, only you won't be there to see the impact that it has. So I want to be mindful of what I say when people are suffering, because I want them to use these words to hear these words that I speak to them many, many years after this has happened. So they have something positive to think about when that thought comes to them again. Maybe I don't want to be here. Maybe I don't want to live. Maybe it's too much. I want them to hear my words saying, you're worth it. You're important. You're valuable. We care about you. Other people may not, but I do. You don't need them. You need someone who's in your corner, and that would be me. Okay? Whether I'm there in person or not, I want them to have that feeling so that they can pull themselves up and go to the right source so that they can get more support from the people who are currently doing the job. That's how seriously I take it.
Mhm.
Scott or Juliana or Shelley, do you want to add?
Well, what came to mind to me, for me, and what I've learned about myself is just how, I mean, this is my first experience being a counselor of any kind, so I didn't really know what it would be like. And I just learned that I'm really passionate about working with people one-on-one and hearing their stories, and and also that I have the ability to be present with someone who's going through something, you know, really serious. And yeah, I think having like stared my own pain in the face, it makes it more, you know, it's easier to be with others who are, you know, care. So yeah, and I started volunteering kind of thinking of maybe like, maybe I'll be a therapist, and this whole experience has kind of, yeah, made me realize that I really want to do that. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott.
I think for me, what Joanne, what you were saying really rings true about feeling like it's a gift for myself. I guess I never realized how much I would get back from this experience. Like,
Yes.
you know, it's what everybody says, right? I mean, it's like, you know, it's like what you give, you get back, like, you know, 100-fold. And I've really found that personally to be true. And I didn't realize how much I needed something like this to feel balanced. I mean, it quieted this need in me that I didn't even realize that I had, to sort of balance out my life and I feel really fortunate. Like, I feel like I am so privileged that, you know, people are sharing their lives with me, and these, you know, traumas and these, you know, intense things or not so intense things, but they're opening up, and I get to be in connection with all different kinds of folks that I would probably never run into maybe in, you know, in my regular life. And so I feel like that's a privilege. And it makes me feel good about myself. And it's, again, something that I need. And I can honestly say, I mean, I've been volunteering for like almost 5 years, the same shift. I think there's been one time that I didn't feel like going, probably because I was tired, but I always want to go. It's just like, okay, this is what I do. It's ritualized. And so yeah, it's definitely, it's a gift.
It's absolutely a gift. I so agree with you.
Yes.
So many people have told me the crisis line shift is like their highlight of the week. Something I look forward to the anchor people. Oh, Joanna, you were going to say something.
I was just, you know, one of the things that I want everyone to really focus on, if it's important to you, is this, that we are helping so many people, and we're reaching out in various ways to do it. We all have our own ways of building rapport and listening and getting to the trigger that made the person call the center. And then after that's over, we have to remember that we got to take care of ourselves so we can be there for other people too. And I like to give respect to Ben for doing that for me, because when I first started, I wanted to come in after working a 10-hour shift, no lunch, only 5 hours of sleep. And he said, no, you can't work. And I thought it was very odd, because I was asking to volunteer. I wasn't asking him to pay me. And he explained why. And from that moment until this day, I always think, and I hear his words. I hear him saying, take care of yourself. We can't use you on the line or anywhere else in life unless you're taking care of yourself first, because we really want you to give your undivided attention to the client. That makes sense to me. And so I have boundaries. And when I'm getting close to the edge, I know I need to pull myself back, because I can hear Ben saying, you can't come and work on the line if you're not taking care of yourself. And in order for me to show up in life, I have to take care of myself before I can take care of anyone else. So I always thank Ben for making me stop on the very first day I wanted to work at crisis support, and he made me go back home and go to sleep. And that's what I did.
Yeah, it's not just words at CSS. It is ingrained deep into the culture in that
Yes.
organization that everybody there is expected to take care of themselves and to manage, with the support of CSS and with whatever. Every time I've had to call in for a shift, usually because my job gets crazy or whatever, I I always like send that email feeling so guilty, but the response always is just take care of yourself, do what you need to do. We'll be here, and it's
That's
like I
right.
said, so deeply ingrained into the culture of that organization. It's not pretend, it's not fake, it's not just something they say, it's not icing, it's real, and I
Yes.
so appreciate.
Yes.
So I see that our time is up. Just want to take a moment to say, like, thank you to the panelists. Thank you for describing that value of ours of like we have care from the inside out. Thank you for sharing your stories and your time. Thank you, participants, with their questions and for being part of this and helping us continue to connect with our community. Yeah, it's so lovely to see everyone, and I look forward to seeing you in future sessions.